Shimana from Penn State Hershey. He's professor of medicine and chief of the Division of Population Health Research and Development, and he is going to address that topic to us this morning. Thanks for coming down.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Thanks, Dr. Stewart. It's been great working on a project with you and inviting me here as well. I changed this up a little bit once I saw all the speakers talk. So you'll see I went to go a little bit off script here. My acknowledgments, first off, we have funding from PCORI. They did not approve this message. And this year, I'm working with an investor group to see if there's a way to use a business approach to disseminate exercise in what we're trying to do. So I'm going to throw out a prediction. It's always bad to do it when you're talking about the future. But I deeply believe, as my role as a primary care doctor, that most adults will not exercise until it begins to feel more like play. And that if anybody remembers the tax issue back in the day, I'd say it's the experience, stupid. People don't do it because it's a terrible experience on average for the vast majority of people. So until we fix that, I'm not sure we're going to get very far, although it will work for pretty much every medical condition under the sun, it seems, if you look at the document today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the elephant that's in the room. And one is, and I'd say that elephant is that people don't do it. Boy, it works. It's amazing. It's magic. Exercise prevents so much, treats so much, yet so few people do it. So less than 7 or 8%, yeah, it's great. They strapped accelerometers on people so we could actually see how much less people do than they tell us when we ask. So less than 10% of people meet physical activity guidelines. And that's pretty pitiful. And that does not show any sign of improving. Matter of fact, all the great things that happened in the 20th century are actually plugged into a wall or are on a monitor. So now Netflix is now the problem. So it's very hard to get people exercising, and we'll talk a little bit about. The two of the things that I thought were going to help were Fitbits and behavioral economics. A lot of interest on these. And honestly, it doesn't look good for either. Studies seem to be showing that Fitbits are not magical in terms of making people do things. And it looks like even paying people to go to the gym and giving them free memberships and all the other behavioral economics tricks that you can come up with don't seem to be effective either. There's a few very nice NBER papers just in the last few months about this. So I'm not sure we can pay people to do it, and I'm not sure that the Fitbit is the solution either. And so this is a slide many people have seen before. These are the behaviors that get people in trouble: smoking, exercise, what we eat, drinking too much. They're the big ones. But exercise is really different because all of those behaviors, there's one thing that exercise requires that the others don't, and it's time. Eating good food doesn't necessarily take more time than eating poor food. Quitting drinking doesn't take more time. Quitting smoking doesn't take more time. But exercise requires time. And most people are really busy. And so that time somehow has to be worth the investment. We either have to get something out of it or it has to be by itself. It has to be worth it. And it's 100 hours a year. I mean, I went for my first colonoscopy last year, but if you asked me to do it twice a week, I'm not sure we'd have good compliance rates. So 100 hours a year to do something, if people don't like it, you can't expect them to continue. And so there's so many memes for exercise. I mean, you don't have to look too far to say, wow, most people really don't like exercising. No matter how many people we cram in a room like this, that's not going to change. So I think, because I was supposed to provide some evidence about exercise and falls, I think the evidence to support that exercise reduces falls is very hard to argue with. This is a study from the New England Journal. It compared several different, which one does it, what exercise does it best, I'm not really sure today, but the randomized trials are pretty compelling that exercise reduces the likelihood that people will fall. There's a nicely done Cochrane systematic review in 2012. You can see the effect sizes on the right column, pretty robust, going between 0.7 and over 1.0. So it's very consistent evidence from the randomized trials that exercise reduces the likelihood that people will fall. The study that we designed, we partly built on a small number of randomized trials to show that maybe exercise reduces injuries. So not just falling, but people getting hurt. And these are studies actually of reducing fracture incidence. And so relative risk of 0.34. So it was a nice signal that there's a decent chance that exercise reduces that. So we built our trial on this. But it really goes back to 2013. I was studying internet approaches for weight loss and talking to my patient. I get paid 4 hours a week to talk to patients to try to get them to exercise and provide primary care at the same time. And I was always surprised why people wouldn't exercise. And so I got a little frustrated and decided to start my own little program, which we started in 2013. So we started a strength training program for seniors. And I got to lead it, which was interesting because I'm not an exercise physiologist. I'm a primary care provider. So I read fairly broadly. And I came across a movement called design thinking, which I'm sure a lot of people in the room have heard about by now. And I think this quote is very important because it's the main tenet of design thinking is empathy for the people you're trying to design for. When people don't exercise, we wag our finger at them. You know you should, yet you do not. It's very easy to do. Design thinkers would say, that's a design problem. Maybe we can design something that people would want to do. But having empathy for the people and not blame is at the core of really good design. And also, the other piece of this is why don't people exercise? It's helpful to look at why people do what they do. And so these 5, I think, are very valuable. People do things when it makes them happy, positive emotions. When they're really engaged, they lose track of time. When it helps them make new friends. We're social beings, and loneliness is epidemic. When it provides some meaning for them. I mean, when a child dies, the parent almost always starts a nonprofit to prevent that from happening to somebody else's kids. Meaning is important, and also a sense of accomplishment. The treadmill will really provide a sense of accomplishment, but it does a very poor job at the other 4 of these. So I don't think we should be shocked that people don't do that. And so when I sat with people, I had to really think about how to design the experience. How do we make this social? Should we have music? It seems like a small question, but we obsess back and forth to this day about whether we should have music or not. How do we arrange the chairs? And how do we make progress visible? When you design something, you have to be in charge of all of those. You have to think through it. And so we had some success with this, which is why I'm here. We started about 15 sites in central Pennsylvania. People really loved it. And it was mainly because in our strength exercises, we sit next to people. And in strength training, you have to take breaks. You take a 60-second break. And when you're sitting next to people, you'll meet them. You'll talk to them. You'll become friends. I mean, these 2 guys, I think this picture sort of tells a lot. These are people who are sort of have some affection for each other as new friends. But they also talk about the social experience. There are other people to help you get along with and socialize. They kid each other, tell jokes, laugh. It's not like work. I look forward to coming to see the people and laugh. So it's the experience, and people kept coming, and I was very surprised by it, which is why we ended up moving forward to a randomized trial to see if it also, as exercise, can reduce a problem that people have. So we're in the midst of a randomized trial. That's how I got to work closely with Dr. Stewart, so thank you so much, to see if a strength and balance program reduces injuries from falls, and that's what we're in the middle of. It's an 1,130-person study. It's Pittsburgh, Central PA, and Philadelphia. It's 3 times a week, progressive strength training, balance training, and aerobic. The main outcome measure is injuries from falls, serious ones. But we're also looking at other things, physical function, mental health. I'd be really surprised if we didn't have an impact on loneliness, because everybody here gets to make new friends. And that's a powerful thing that you can give someone. We're partway through, and so far it looks like our randomization works like a charm. P-values are all insignificant for the differences between our intervention and controls. Average age is about 72, so these are young, old people. but they all had to have a fracture already. So this is a secondary prevention study. Half of them half of them had been diagnosed with osteoporosis. About 2/3 had some element. Only a third had some loneliness. But it's a large study, and we're in the middle of it. But it looks like we're at least affecting what we thought we were going to as an intermediate variable, which is we have to make people stronger. So the number of arm curls they can do in 30 seconds goes up quite nicely, not surprising. The number of chair stands they can do, it's another powerful predictor of a future mobility. That goes up a little more slowly, but even a couple of increase of 2 in chair stands is clinically significant. We suspect will continue to increase this. The piece that I'm really focused on, though, is the adherence. We only get people to go to about 6.4 sessions per month. We're not really sure exactly how many we'll need, but 6.4 doesn't sound like we had hoped for. The goal that we can do is 12. We certainly think we need to do twice a week. That would be 8. And so now we're kind of stuck on this new problem, just what can we change to enhance adherence? Again, we're back to thinking about these issues of design thinking. We're interested in trying to figure out how to tap into the reasons why people do what they do. And I think in the end, one day that people exercise when it is fun. And right now the fastest growing sport in America is pickleball. And in a way, if we make people strong, I know people who fall playing sports sounds really frightening to people in this room, but once we get people strong and we get them a bunch of new friends, maybe they can play with each other. And a lot of municipalities are tearing up their tennis courts, putting in pickleball courts. And right now it's shocking in how much it's growing. Oddly, there's a single citation in PubMed as of last week on it. 1. So PubMed is a little slow to catch on to the trends. It takes a little while to write those papers, I know. But my hope is that in 1980, there were 33 million tennis players. Last year, there were 18. So adjusting for the population, it's about a 2/3 reduction in the number of people who play. But all those people who played, they all know how to play, and I suspect they wouldn't be scared to actually play something else. So this is one of the things that we may try to do, to see if we can get people together to do some of the aerobic activity, which we wanted them to do, doing it in a way that is actually fun. So they may want to stick with it. And this is partly based on a project a few years ago that I did, which I wondered, why can't we get middle-aged adults to play again? Did anybody not play as a kid? Anybody in here? One person? Anybody? Okay. No one didn't play as a kid, so why do so few adults play? And so if pickleball is popular, why can't we just modify other sports? Because that's all it is. It's a modified version of tennis, so it's easier, smaller court. And so we spent some time modifying basically all of the sports that we could find, using different equipment, smaller court dimensions, lighter underinflated balls. We play soccer with an underinflated lightweight volleyball. We recruited some middle-aged adults. We rotated the games, tried it for about 12 weeks. Had them play catch for a bit, then play games. We choose sides randomly so nobody gets stuck having to be the last person picked. I'm sure that was a really bad idea from gym class. We won't want to bring forward. But shockingly, or not surprisingly, they had a lot of fun. That was so much fun. Oh my gosh, I'm sweating buckets. That's the best part. Required rule to pass, yay teamwork, most fun I've ever had playing soccer. These were not soccer players. We had them rotate through 8 or 9 sports because we were trying to figure out which ones were really helpful, which ones worked well, which ones were fun and were some exercise. Great amount of teamwork needed. People really had a lot of fun. We strapped accelerometers onto them, and so a lot of time was spent in MVPA, and they really liked it. So satisfaction scores out of 10 were in the mid-8s for most of these. So we actually have an RO1 that's under review. We got a good score. We're waiting for council to meet. So we would do a study of this compared to a traditional classroom-based activity to see if play might be something people would want to stick with. Could we change the activity itself, and would that drive adherence rates and then fitness gains from it? So we're hopeful, and actually one of my favorite philosophers is Mo from the TV show Simpsons, who famously said, this has been quoted all over the place, we're phasing out the games. People drink less when they're having fun. And so I hope that's true, because I don't think that we'll get to where we want to in terms of making exercise medicine until the activity is something that people deeply look forward to and love. Thank you. Questions, comments? Please.
My age, older, we weren't really exposed to sports as children. We were supposed to sit and loiter. How are older women embracing all these different games?
I think mostly, well, people played, I realized Title IX came about in the 70s. A lot of girls in particular weren't on sports teams, but they played. They played because there was no cable TV, there was no internet. People did things with other people. They danced. Incredible numbers of people danced compared to what they do today. Now, that's not having a regrowth, but I'm hoping to pull the 33 million people who play tennis, and a lot of them played racquetball too. So holding a racket is not something that really would be shocking to them. But we're going to start a beginner program where we bring people together and just start by hitting back and forth and progress to being able to actually play a game. But it starts with you basically have to create like a kids program for people who are in their 70s. And I think that's how you'd have to do it. Because even if they did play, I bet you they're scared to death to try, a lot of them. So yeah, you have to meet them where they are. So we have some space reserved in the senior center, and we'll be trying it. Please.
Disabled to get injured, people die, the groups kind of fall apart over time, or the intervention ends, and then what? So I don't know if you thought about solutions to things like that.
So my general thought is that, first off, you can't end an intervention. So in ours are based in churches, and so we actually would have a very hard time removing it even if we wanted to. We built it to be led by volunteers. So our interventions are typically volunteer-led and church-based and inexpensive materials so that they will persist. So those sites I started in 2013, all but one, continue to this day. And it was the one at our own fitness center. So, but you're right, so we built, the model though is built to be sustainable through free space, free people to lead it, and inexpensive materials. And then you have to have some people coming in too. So, but being in a church, there's people there, they hear about it. But yeah, you have to have some people coming in because people invariably move, get injured, die.
That's you think of something, working with a church group. Do you have any thoughts about interventions? Busy workplace. I've heard people talk about a 10-minute exercise and how someone might go about doing that in terms of their workplace to encourage their employees to exercise and be healthy, and I think like that would be beneficial for the employer.
Yeah, it's a complicated problem. I mean, employers really don't, they're not that progressive in a lot of ways. People sweat. So we're actually starting now also a 30-minute band program that you can do during lunch in a conference room. And so we're starting that. I don't know what is shovel ready because the problem of sweating is a problem. Our strength program is pretty good in that I don't think people don't really sweat in it. So I don't think they get done and go, let me find me a shower. Because showers are an enormous problem for workplaces. They don't have tons of showers. But people are there, and so, maybe we can bring them together. That would be part of it. Thank you. Are there questions? Anybody else? Sorry. I think it has a huge role. So we actually tried walking groups are very powerful interventions, effect size of 0.5 compared to effect sizes of 0.2 for telling people to walk. So I think walking groups are very powerful. It's actually a complicated psychological intervention though, because we've tried them. And so, because you're walking with somebody and you might be faster and then you might get stuck with somebody you don't want to talk to. And the other person you could talk to is actually 100 yards ahead of you. So it's actually complicated to make it really super sticky, whereas in our groups, you can always talk to 5 different people at any one time, so it's easier that way. So I think walking is amazing. Look, it's everywhere. We all have shoes on, but it's complicated to make it something that is really awesome that you look forward to. And that's our goal. Please. Talk about play, about friendly competition. We hear that in a lot of different categories that might increase level of intensity. Yeah, I mean, I think we struggled on this because actually in Mars we don't keep score. People love to score. Okay, they all want, so like we get, nobody plays goalie, right? Let it go in the net, right? People just want to score and have fun with it. But it, it's complicated because not everybody wants to lose. And if every game has one loser, and there's a 50% chance it's you. Now, the other nice thing is that when you deal with people who are over 50, they don't care nearly as much as they did when they were 20. So that part's good, but it has to really just be friendly competition. And so you have to make that the culture. So as long as you don't obsess about, you were vanquished, people might want to do it. Yeah. As my son does when he beats me. Yeah, rub it in. Yeah.
Questions?
Thank you.
We'll have time for